I'm speaking to you from Sydney, Australia, and this is one of those places on this planet that is becoming basically COVID-free. We haven't had any single cases here. I think Victoria, state of Victoria, that had problems is completely free from active cases. We haven't had anything here in New South Wales for a while, and so all the state and territory borders are opening for the summer holidays and Christmas. So it must be a different situation to be in the United States or North America or Europe right now. And I think one thing that we are noticing is that the well-being, both student well-being and teacher and principal well-being are nevertheless a big issues that we talk about. I would like to start also this very short moment that I have to talk to you as Dennis did with a question. So if I can have my question to you, and just in the same way that you did with Dennis, if you can give a kind of a one-word response to this question, that how have the students in your own country and in your primary and secondary schools or in the classrooms changed during the last 5 years? One thing I think is happening in probably all of the countries that are taking part in this meeting today is that there's a lot of data collected and a lot of surveys done on young people and adults and education systems and many others. The situation is similar here in Australia. Just a couple of days ago, earlier this week, Mission Australia, that is an organization that annually reports the young people's health and well-being issues, published the annual report. That is interesting in a sense that it reflects the situation during the pandemic. So it's data was collected during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm just going to mention, for the sake of interest, something for those who are kind of curious about the situation here. I think it's probably very similar to many other countries around the world. So first of all, young people here, they were asked to make a free text response, a little bit the same way as you have done here, regarding the biggest personal issue in the past year. So during this 2020, so the top 3 biggest personal issues for Australian young people were first education. And it was by far the biggest personal issue. Second, mental health, and thirdly, the COVID pandemic. So when the same young people, they were asked to choose from the menu of issues, as this survey is doing every year, the similar things. Then the top 3 concerns, the most important issues for the nation here, according to young people, Australian young people, were first, equity and discrimination. About more than 40% of young people saw that as a big issue. The second one was the COVID-19. Again, about 40% saw it as a big issue. And then about 30% of young people saw their mental health as a big topic. So I guess that this is a global phenomenon everywhere. And what I'm going to tell you next very briefly is a research that we have done here to understand a little bit more detailed way here in Australia what the schools and classrooms look like from through the eyes of teachers and principals. And this is something that has not been done in this country before in a similar way, so we don't have any baseline data to compare with. The other important notion here is that this data that I'm going to speak about in a minute was collected here across the country, Australia, just before the COVID pandemic started. So this data is about 11 months old or so, just before the beginning of this year. And so we were asking similar things that I was asking you to reflect on your own schools or classrooms and young people in them and how they have changed. So we asked a number of questions from school principals and teachers here, how they have how they have young people. How they have seen young people changing during the 3 to 5 years through their own experience. And this is what we heard from about 2,000 educators here. That is a good representative sample of all the states and territories here in Australia. So first of all, and there are a couple of things I want to mention here. First of all, over 90% of principals and teachers who responded to our survey, they reported us that the students who they see in their schools and classrooms, that they come to school with emotional challenges, social challenges, behavioral problems, and cognitive challenges. So about 90% of respondents say that number of those students who come to school every day challenged by these things has increased. So we don't know exactly how significant these growing numbers of students are, but it's a very clear kind of a picture of how the Australian classrooms are becoming more complex places to teach and learn. One of the respondents, we have a lot of material from teachers and principals describing these changes. One of the respondents say that there is an increasing anxiety among students. Some cases are severe. 25 years ago, she writes, this was very rare, with 1 or 2 students in an entire school suffering anxiety. Now it's common to have several students with depression and anxiety in every year group. So this is one part of the thing that the teachers and principals see many more students today than just a few years back, coming, bringing their personal challenges of many kinds to school every day. So what does it mean? And this is the second part of the my inputs here. What does it mean for the work of the school? So according to our data, 84% of teachers and principals here believe that digital technologies are a growing distraction in the learning environment. Just like in your responses, many of you refer to students having more engagement or involvement in using their digital devices or spending time more in front of screens when they are at home. So this distraction is a very common thing. 78%, again, according to our data, 78% of principals and teachers say that students' abilities to focus on educational tasks has decreased. A very significant notion. The similar number of respondents say that they have noticed a decrease in student empathy. And about 3 of 5 Australian teachers and educators think that the students' level of physical activity has declined. So overall, the conclusion that we have made in this and what the teachers and principals in our survey and in this research that is underway and going on as we speak shows is that about 60% of teachers and principals, again, according to our survey, believe that the students' readiness to learn when they come to school has declined. And this is, of course, is a significant notion if it's true, and it has to be true in some ways, because this is what the educators here respond to us. So now this is the final word here is for those who think that maybe this is just Australia, maybe something is happening here to young people, that the teachers and educators just see these things in the school that way. Maybe that's the case. But this study that I'm talking about is called Growing Up Digital Australia. And it's exactly the same study using the same methodology and survey and research instruments than the Growing Up Digital study that was conducted in the province of Alberta in Canada just a few years before. And guess what? The results that we have here compared to the Canadian data is very similar. It's almost identical. these trends are exactly the same. The rate of students with the increased challenges and difficulties who come to school are very similar to they are in Canada. So that's why my final question to you is, if I can have the question there on the on your screen. So if we think for a while that these changes that we have seen here in Australia and Canada are also present in your own countries, maybe in a lesser extent, or some of them may be stronger than here. What do you think we should do? So what do you think is the thing that you as a system leader, somebody who has access to influence the policies and practices in the school, what do you think we should do? And I'm going to give you now, because this is a big issue, and we are trying to focus on solutions as well. Yeah, it's just pressure because of the standardized testing and examinations is certainly one big issue here, and it comes not only in our data but also with the Mission Australia, this well-being thing. So that's certainly something that we are actually working on currently about this issue, trying to figure out what would be a healthier and cheaper way to do the same thing. Yeah, that's another common thing. But it's interesting when I look at these responses from people, they're very, very kind of a forward-looking and somehow deep ideas. This co-designing is certainly one thing. But if I step aside a little bit from the process that we are doing right now, back to our research, because what we are actually trying to tease out from this data, just like our Canadian colleagues in Alberta has done, is that can we somehow link the changing some of these changing behaviors that you identified earlier, just 15 minutes ago, in your own countries. Many of you mentioned that the young people are much more kind of engaged with the devices and technology, and depending on that, and sometimes even addicted. And that is one thing that we try to kind of see, that what role the use of technology, the increasing use of technology, and this relationship that young people have with the devices has with these numbers that I was talking about. One thing is, and these are all wonderful ideas that I can see here, but one thing that I think we need to be asking as well is that if there's a chance that this, for example, declining readiness to learn, that is an overall kind of a negative outcome of all these things, is partly because of the increasing reliance on digital technologies and media that young people do. Then, of course, the question, what should we need to do, should also address that issue. I'm much more here interested in figuring out what should we do if this, if it turns out to be that some of these things that we are seeing in these well-being and mental health statistics globally are linked to the children's use of technology, in good and bad. And one of these things, I want to take this back to this co-designing thing, because it's an important thing, is that I don't think that we should try to solve this problem like some governments and countries have done, including here in Australia, by taking these devices and technology away from kids when they're in a school. That this co-designing idea, I understand that it's a larger issue here, should be related to this particular problem or challenge we have, by asking young people and parents and teachers, educators, to sit down together and, for example, look at this data that we have from Canada and Australia now, and say that, how should we deal with this issue, rather than just simply, banning things from kids. We have a lot of experiences here. It's just like in Canada, that when young people are engaged in this problem solving, for example, with this particular issue of how technology is affecting their well-being and health overall, that the solutions are often much more effective than if the authorities or adults try to solve them out. So that's why this kind of a co-designing, but this very particular issue of using technology in school and out of school could lead to better solutions by engaging young people. We have a lot of evidence from around the world, really, that the kind of opposite way of trying to improve excellence or quality of what we do doesn't really work. For example, there's a lot of examples of this technology used by force to limit students' access to their devices. That it doesn't really work. I'm sure that those governments who have tried to do that, at some point they have to admit that it's not the smartest way to do. Exclude young people from this conversation and just decide that this is not what the kids should be doing. So that's why I think the engagement and empowerment of young people and schools to decide what is the best thing to do is absolutely the right thing to do here.